Okay, I'm going to do some coaching on the Mendelssohn Scottish Symphony, second movement, Oboe Audition Excerpts. This is really difficult piece to prepare for auditions. I think it's one of the most difficult excerpts for me personally, so definitely set aside some time to prepare and practice slowly also with a metronome. Um, for the tempo, I tend to play it a little bit on the slower side. I would say 116 to 120 is my tempo for these excerpts, and if I were to perform it and it goes faster, I think that's a lot of fun, and certainly be able to do that. But I think for auditions, it's okay to just hold it back and make sure there's so much detail and just really precise articulation. There's nowhere to hide. So you want to make sure that you're not sort of at the edge of what you can do. You don't want to play at your fastest possible. You want to play a little bit before then, so you have that full control. Yeah, this is pretty difficult in terms of trying to keep a steady tempo too, because I think in both of these excerpts there's some 16 notes, which the 16 notes kind of, you can feel the tempo and control that. But once you get to the longer notes and tied notes, you need to keep those 16 notes in your mind, so that those are the same tempo and it matches up how fast you play the 16th. So that's an area where the long notes you don't want to play too short or too long, because the listener will be counting or feeling that tempo you set up with the 16th notes. So just keep that in mind. Can practice with the metronome or record yourself and to see. I think, yeah, at the beginning of the first excerpt, just count yourself in, because it starts with a pickup note. You want your tempo to be established before you start playing. And I like to use a fork def at the beginning, because I think it's just cleaner, easier for the fingering. And then I can also put in just a little bit more air, because the fork def tends to be a little bit weaker. So I'm happy to just give a little bit more air support, and that makes me feel comfortable when I'm trying to play a fast passage. I like to give a little bit more air. That's something that helps me feel confident. You can use a left F too. It's not really a big deal. I don't think it's noticeable at all with a up to tempo. It just goes by so quick that I don't think a listener could tell the difference. It's more about what your personal comfort is. But I would definitely choose one, either left F or forked F. Just try to choose it early on, so you just practice the same fingering, mark in all your fingerings, of course. And just start, it says mezzo forte. Don't try to control the sound too much on the low register. Just let it sound, full, and how, you don't want to be nervous and trying to control the low register too much. Just be confident in that. So yeah, I will see if there's anything else that comes up while I play, but I will demonstrate with my metronome, have the doctor beat set at 116 and give it a try. Yeah, so that's definitely a nice tempo for me. Just felt like I was able to handle the 16th notes, and it didn't feel too long with the long notes. You don't want to go too slow, otherwise those long notes really go on forever. So just finding that balance. I think the end. So I like to end the solo on a staccato, which I was just thinking about just now. It's like, yeah, it is a little bit of that awkward ending with that dee 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 dee, and then it's just rests. It doesn't feel like it's really an end of a phrase, and I think it's more of maybe a transition between phrases. So especially with that sforzando on the A, you don't want to make the G too heavy. So that's my solution. Is that last note I just play with a staccato. Also, in the previous line with the sforzandos, after the long held A, I just kind of start back when, after that, when it starts to get going, I take the dynamic just a little bit back, and then I just build up on the sforzandos each time. I think it naturally builds there, so that rather than just keeping the same dynamic, it's nice to do something, even though it's not printed, but I feel that there's some momentum and some build up with those sforzandos all in a row. So give yourself room. It's okay to sometimes come back at some phrases and give yourself room to phrase, because you don't want to be fortissimo and then trying to push your tone past that. If you want to build, you have to start a little bit less, so then your tone is still under control when you build in crescendo. Otherwise, just loud. So yeah, that's my advice for that first excerpt. I think if it's a struggle for that first bar, just to get it clean and even, definitely you can practice it slowly, and then also you can practice it all tongued. So that helps too. When you have something that's all slurred and you want to practice it, just put all tongued, and then if there's something all tongued, you practice it all slurred. That's just something I learned, and for some reason it helps clean things up. And then you can do some rhythms. That helps too. I think, yeah, just practice it with a metronome and just take it apart. You can take it apart beat by beat, actually. And then just give yourself some checkpoints along the way. So that's another strategy as well. Make sure the dotted notes don't become into triplets. If you practice 16 notes, then you'll have that in your mind. So make sure that doesn't become into a triplet in those sections. And with a little bit of space, I think it's nice to have. Okay, moving on to the next excerpt. So this is, pretty difficult. I think it's more difficult than La Scala di Seta, at least for me personally, because there is some ties. You have to make sure that you count accurately. There are some sforzandos. In the second line is my spot that I'm always practicing, because it goes down with those leaps. Right, so getting that pretty even and doing a little bit of embouchure shift along the way. Make sure you don't crack the A flat and the G's. So just getting that under control. So I think there's definitely some challenges. I wouldn't do anything really crazy with the phrasing or try to do any really big gestures. I would keep it simple, because the notes already sound complicated. So when the music already sounds complicated, you actually need to do less. You can just play the notes and put what it says on the page and bring it to life, basically, would be my strategy. Just play a little bit more robotic, and it will sound interesting enough. So yeah, here again, make sure it's the same tempo. If this is the one that's tripping you up, then choose your tempo for the first one based on this one, because the tempo has to be pretty much the same. You can't just play the first one and then slow down. For the second one, it's not going to work. So keep that in mind. Okay, so another thing that I do is I will fill in all the 16 notes when I practice. So that's another good way to practice. I will go ahead and demonstrate this, and if there's more things that come to mind, I will tell you after. So 1/16 on the metronome. I like to play excerpts with the metronome, and I'll give it a go. bad. So yeah, basically I just try to keep in control. I'm sometimes a person who moves around a lot when I play, but I need to make sure that my body still and less stuff going on, so I can just really focus on the embouchure and make sure it's really precise. If you're adding too many variables of like moving, then that's not going to help. So when you're practicing, maybe practice in front of a mirror as well, and just verify that you're not adding complications. I think, this is one that you just stand still and make sure that everything is going to work. It's not a time to be so expressive or, try to just enjoy it. This is like mental focus, right? So that's kind of my attitude, my thinking when I want to play this. And what I like to do is something that helps with the phrasing at the end, or with the dynamics, is you see at this part where it's right, so that's one chord. So I play that a little bit stronger, and then I play the next one a little bit weaker, and then I play even softer. So it's sort of three, because it's a little bit different chords, and then it sets up, and then I try to play soft at that last phrase. Right, so that's, even though it says pianissimo both times, I feel like there's a little bit different, especially that when you do that last phrase, I like to back off just a little bit more and make that more of a true pianissimo and play a little bit more on the chords. Yeah, I think the chords, arpeggios, is like a little bit different than that last. I mean, that's an arpeggio too, but as you know what I mean, it's just a little, just to create a little bit difference. But other than that, I just don't really do much with the dynamics. You can come out a little bit in the second line, and that will help the low A flat and low G. And just make sure you support, but don't let those notes pop out too much. It's okay to give a little bit extra sound so they don't crack, but don't really like make them come out of the texture. Try to keep it, within a phrase. And if you're having trouble with the articulation, you can slow it down or just break it up. So I guess I can try both of them. Something like that, where you practice in little chunks and then you can speed it up. You can practice double notes. So that helps because it slows down the fingers, but you're just practicing the tonguing, and then it's easier for the coordination if you make everything double notes. So that's a way I really like to practice, is double notes. If you're having more trouble than that, just practice outside of the oboe. Just say it to yourself, and you can talk through it while doing the fingering. And then you can also feel the coordination between your fingers and your tongue while you're not playing. It actually is easier to tell and easier to coordinate that way. So spend some time like that. You don't have to keep playing all the time. You can find some creative solutions. You can practice tonguing scales. And if it's, this piece is in F major and kind of D minorish, so you can practice the F major scale. Tongued. Practice your scales when you're warming up. You can build in a little bit more of the tonguing exercises when you warm up, and that will help improve just your coordination and just your tonguing speed overall, as if you work it into your technique. And yeah, other than that, I would say you can practice maybe a chromatic scale as well in alt-tongued. Something like that, or you can loop some notes. So those are kind of tools that you can find yourself, just figure out what kind of things outside of this excerpt you need to work on. And this low G or low note articulations, that's another difficult thing. With the low G, sometimes they crack. You can practice that. So what I do is I kind of practice finding the spot on the reed, then kind of pulling the reed away, so I find that same spot, right? If our embouchure changes and we go up to a high note and then we come and have to do low note articulation, that's something that's tricky. You know, if it's the beginning of the phrase, you know, we really like make sure we get in the right embouchure, but as you're playing, you have to get back. So embouchure flexibility and just trying to establish good attacks. That could be something that you kind of think about outside this excerpt in your warm-ups. But yeah, just be creative and just try to have a light tonguing feel. And if it's not working out, like you find the tonguing is a little bit too heavy, just try to play more on the tip of the reed. And it's, you know, just try to play a little bit shorter, especially if you're in a slower tempo. You have to work harder to play shorter. If it's a faster tempo, you don't have to worry about it because it'll go by quicker. So just think about what tempo you're at and what kind of style and how do you make all these details work at any tempo, because this one you can try to make it sell it even at a slower tempo. It just takes a little bit more of that planning and style. But yeah, that's my advice for the Mendelssohn Scottish Symphony. Definitely check out some recordings and just be patient and practice with the metronome. So yeah, hopefully that was helpful for you.